I'm going to read Laura Charlotte. Laura couldn't sleep. She tried, but her eyes just wouldn't stay closed. Through the open windows came the soft scent of lilacs and a slice of night sky. Were the stars out? She sat up to look. Are you still awake? Mama whispered. It's way past your bedtime. But I'm not sleepy, Laura said. Tell me a story, please. What kind of story? Mama asked. Laura pulled the covers up to her chin. Tell me the story of Charlotte. But you already know that story. Mama sat down on the edge of the bed. You've heard it 1,000,000 times before. I know, but I want to hear it again, Laura said. Start at the beginning. Start once upon a time, when I was a little girl. Once upon a time, Mama began, when I was a little girl, your grandma was in the kitchen making a cake, a very special cake, because it was my birthday and I was 5 years old. It was going to be a tall chocolate cake with buttercream frosting. And pink sugar roses on top, Laura said. Don't leave anything out. And pink sugar roses on top, Mama said. Then the doorbell rang, and Grandma went to answer it. There's a present for you, she called. For me, I said. Something for me? I ran to the door. There in the hall was a package wrapped in brown paper and tied with red string. Grandma used her scissors to cut the knots. Underneath was blue birthday paper, and underneath the paper was a white box. And when I lifted the lid of the box, there was Charlotte, Laura cried. Yes, there she was. And your grandma said, oh, what a beautiful elephant. I couldn't say anything at all. She was beautiful. She had soft gray flannel ears and a long gray flannel trunk and a tiny, tiny flannel tail. Your great-grandmother had made her from the scraps of her sewing basket just for me. What are you going to call it? Your grandma asked. Charlotte, I said. Her name is Charlotte. Because, began Laura. Because I thought Charlotte was the prettiest name in the whole world, Mama said. And from that day on, Charlotte and I were best friends. Charlotte went riding in the wagon with me. We had picnics together in the garden and played school in the nursery when it rained. We shared afternoon naps and bedtime stories, and sometimes even the flu. And at night we shared Ducky, because Charlotte was afraid of the dark, Laura said. Shh, close your eyes, Mama whispered. Yes, because Charlotte was afraid of the dark. Once, Mama said, a terrible thing happened. Cousin Carrie came for a visit, and we played hide and seek in the garden. But that night, when I reached for Charlotte, she was gone. Where could she be? Had I left her outside, still hiding under the willow? I tiptoed down the back stairs and peeked out the door. The garden looked shaggy and dark. I shivered. Far, far away, past the lilacs and daylilies, stood the tall willow. I was afraid to go out without Charlotte. Then I thought, was Charlotte afraid without me? I pushed open the door and ran across the wet summer grass, and ran until I ducked under the arms of the willow. There was Charlotte. I grabbed her up and hugged her. She was wet and, oh. I started to cry. Poor Charlotte had only one ear. Dinah the cat had chewed off the other. But it didn't matter, Laura said quickly, because you still loved her best. Mama stroked Laura's hair. No, it didn't matter. I still loved her best, and I sat right beside her while my grandmother sewed on a new flannel ear. We were both very brave. But one day, I was too old to play with Charlotte. Instead of sharing picnics and tea parties, she slept on my pillow, safe on my bed. And then one day when I was older still, I carefully wrapped Charlotte up in blue tissue paper and put her away. For your own little girl, Charlotte said. For the little child I hoped I'd have, Mama said gently. Now comes the best part, Laura whispered. And then one day, Mama continued, I did have my own little girl, and your daddy said, what shall we call her? And I said, we'll call her Laura Charlotte. Laura after her grandma, and Charlotte because it's the prettiest name in the whole world. And then you gave Charlotte to me, Laura said, and now she's my best friend and plays with me. As Mama rubbed her back, Laura thought about great-grandmother, who made Charlotte from the gray flannel scraps of her sewing basket, and Grandma, who made the birthday cake, and the little girl Mama, who ate it. And now me, Laura thought. Circled by love, she hugged Charlotte closer and closed her eyes. The end.